Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this video, we're going to be doing some cartoon style text. Now, most of this work is going to be done inside of and using layer styles, and I'll show you how you can do a lot of fun little tricks with layer styles. We'll also be doing some type warping, as you can see right down here. The stuff in the background, this is just a bunch of pictures that I put together from clip art that's over in Photoshop Elements, but almost anything can use or be used as a background. I'm sure you'd want to do something which would be more appropriate for your use. So here it is, the basic concept. As we go through, take a look at our panels over here on the left hand side. Let me just close some things down and I'll talk you through this. We'll then go ahead and build this. So first thing we'll need is our basic text, just like that. Now I have the text divided up into two layers. Actually, I have one layer here and one layer there because we're doing different things to those two layers. So we have those out on separate layers. But that's the basic idea. Just put down some text. Now the typeface that I'm using here is called Showcase Gothic, and that's right there, or Showcard Gothic rather. Now this is a typeface that comes with a lot of Microsoft products, so you may already have this on your system. If you use Microsoft Office, for instance, or Publisher, it's going to be already included. That's I think where I got mine from. Now if you don't have Showcard Gothic, I did take a look online. Just do a search for Showcard Gothic on Google, and you'll find several sources for this typeface. It's very easy to find, not a hidden or unusual typeface by any means. Okay, so we have our basic typeface. We're going to be doing with that, let's just go up here to our top level. We'll be using layer styles, and notice that both of these are images as opposed to type layers. So right down here, those are type layers, and then these are image layers. We're going to be rasterizing the layers into an image layer so we can move things around and reposition it like that. And also so we can do some fancier stuff in here as well. Now, in the background, I have this picture, and again, that's just something which I tossed together over in Photoshop Elements. Just a lot of little shapes and things, and just kind of stuck them on there, added some effects and stuff. Nothing dramatic. That's just put in there as a background. And then I have an adjustment layer in here with a gradient on that little gradient layer, and that is set for screen just to give us kind of a faded out background look. Okay, let's go ahead and start this project. First, we need to have a new file. I have this one set at 1000 by 1000. You can put your resolution on anything you want, but I would assume that you're going to be working on this kind of an artwork. You'd be working for the web, possibly as a YouTube channel art, or maybe something for Twitter or Facebook. Something along those kinds of lines, or you're making some artwork for use on a channel or a social media site. So I'll leave it at 72 resolution, which is a standard resolution for the internet. Choose OK. Now we did it square just to make it easy to do, and let's just fit this on screen. There we go. Now as I'm working here, you'll be thinking that I'm using a lot of menus and so forth instead of using shortcut keys. I'm doing that on purpose so that you could always see exactly what it is that I'm doing. If I was using shortcut keys, then you can't see what I'm doing. You'll see things happen, but you won't see any action on that. So I'm going to be staying away from shortcut keys as much as possible and doing everything with the mouse and menus so you can actually see what's going on as we're building this. Okay, let's go over here to our type tool, and let's set the colors to the default colors, and Showcard Gothic right there. And I'll just type in my name and do a little apostrophe. There we go. Now there are a couple different ways of resizing text inside of Photoshop. Right now I'm in Photoshop CS6, but this works for all versions of Photoshop. You can double click on that, go up here and type in a new point size, or grab your move tool, go up to edit and transform scale. This allows you to actually pull the typeface out like that and make it any size you want. Very useful little trick to know about. It actually changes the size of the typeface. And we'll just apply that. Now if I go back here to the type tool, you'll see that still type. And it now has a point size of 246.97. So that's the easiest way to resize your text. Okay, so there's our first type layer. Let's make a new type layer down here. There we go. And let's resize that. Transform scale. Notice I can go taller or wider too, so you can deform your type if you want to at this point, which might be a fun thing to do, get a little more interest to it. Just kind of like that. There we are. So we have our two basic bits of text. We'll start on the tunes. I'm going to warp this, so I'll click into our text and then go up here, a little button there. This is our warp text tool. There it is. Or the type menu and warp text. I'll just choose arc. There we go. There's our arc setting. Now with this one you can adjust the amount of distortion to get just the look that you want. We can make it look a little more interesting. And vertical distortion. So there's all kinds of fun stuff in here to really make this look a little more exciting or dynamic. And you have all kinds of different shapes, like a flag wave in here. Kind of fish shape. Fisheye effect. Squeezing effect. So find one that you like and then go ahead and use that. I'll stick with the arc. I'm not going to be doing the exact same thing that it did last time, just to make it a little more interesting in here. So there we go. Notice that it's still text and I can still resize this. So edit, transform scale, and I can still resize and keep it as text this whole time. So all of that is real nice. There we go. Now when you're applying something like that, you either can choose the little check mark up here or just click back on your move tool. It will give you that apply dialog box. So either way is just fine. Okay, so we have our basic text now on their own layers. We can begin to work with our layer effects. We're still on our tunes. Go down here to the FX button. Click on blending modes. That will bring up the blending mode dialog box. There's lots of stuff in here. And let's see what we have to play around with. I'll show you just a few things first. We'll start off with a gradient overlay on this one. Click onto that. Now we had kind of a rainbow effect on my previous one, so I'll click over here where it has gradient, click a little drop down list, and you have all of these different gradients you can choose from. And there's more of these available over here. Click on the little gear and you can choose more right down here. You have all kinds of different gradients available for your use. You can even reverse that gradient if you want to, if you're not happy with that. You can adjust the angle of your gradient so it has different effect, and you can scale the gradient larger or smaller. Something kind of like that looks nice on this. So that gives us our basic gradient effect in there. We also can blend the gradient with things underneath. So you can do some blending down. I'll show you how you can use blending down with gradients when we get up here to the name, our top one. And you can adjust the opacity also. So there's some basic settings on the gradient. The other two things that I had on the tunes, I had a bevel edge on this. So let's go up here to our bevel and emboss. Click on that. And you click on the name, it then gives you the tools over here for working with that. I'm going to set this one to chisel hard and adjust the depth. You see that it makes it a lot stiffer, a lot harder. And it's kind of just a personal choice how much of that you want. And you adjust the size with this size control. I think something right about in there. And you can soften or not, that's up to you. I'm going to leave mine hard on this. And let's just play with the depth a bit to get just the right effect. I don't want it too stiff, just a little cartoony looking. Kind of like that. And there's lots and lots of controls again. You also can adjust the lighting in here. Direction of your lighting. You can adjust the highlight mode. You can change the contour. All kinds of fun different effects. Kind of like that actually. Kind of a spacey sci-fi thing. But we'll stick with the default contour for this demo. Okay, last thing we had on this bit of type was a drop shadow, and that's also right here under the layer styles. Click on drop shadow. There it is. There's the drop shadow, and again we have our opacity, angle. This is your lighting angle, the distance, spread, size, and you can adjust your contour as well. We won't be doing anything down there with the contour. You see the distance actually moves it like that. The further away it is, the more it looks like it's floating, but the shadow needs to be behind your letters to give that floating effect. If you go outside, it ruins the effect. So have it in behind for that floating effect. I'm going to pull it here just for a second. You can see these things. The spread does that, and the size really softens it out. And I think just kind of a subtle bit, not too much on the size, just a little bit. And you can also adjust the opacity here, so I'm going to make it lighter by bringing the opacity down a touch. Now part of the reason for that is we're going to be putting in that picture in behind, and I want the picture to show through that shadowing effect. But there we go. Kind of a fun tune. It's again a little different from the last one I did. I put a little more swoosh onto it this time. And all of this was now done just using the layer styles. Choose OK, and that's done. Okay, we're now going to move up and begin work on the name. This will take a little more work because we're going to be putting in our layer styles and effects and then rasterizing this layer and moving the letters around after the layer has been rasterized. You'll notice over here, as we did all these effects, we have a list of our effects right down there. You can bring these back up again, just double click on where it says effects, and that brings back up the layer style dialog box. You can hide or show individual effects to see what the difference is by clicking on these little eye icons, or hide or show your effects completely. The nice thing about doing it this way is that we can always go back and change anything at any point. For instance, if I go here to the gradient, come in here, and I can then choose from any of these gradients, just kind of move around and choose different gradients and see how that look is. There we go. Or just choose the gradient from our drop-down list in here. So it allows you a great degree of control to go back in and modify if you want to. So it gives you, it's real nice. Now on the side over here, if you don't want to be having all this stuff displayed, just click on that little button right there and it hides that. Now I have this set for real large icons. I'm sure yours would be much smaller than mine are. I have that on purpose so that you can easily see what I'm doing over here on the right hand side. If you want to adjust your icons, go up here to the top of the layers menu, top right hand corner, that little drop down list. Way down here, kind of see that it says panel options. I'll bring that up, and I just have my thumbnail size set real large. There we are. That's why those are so big. Okay, let's now take a look at the George. I'm going to move this to the top just so it's above that in both places. Let's put in some effects onto this now. Again, click on that FX button and top option, blending options, and layer styles again. Now I had a couple of things going on here. I had a color and a gradient, and we had a soft bevel on this and a little drop shadow. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's do our gradient overlay first. Come in here, there's a gradient overlay. And I can reverse that or not, top to bottom. We can change the scale of this so it's larger or smaller. And we can adjust the angle if you want to. Just type in an angle even. I'll just type back in 90 to return that to its original setting. Bring that back up again. So it's easy to come in here, as you can see, and actually do some of this adjustments in here with the gradient. We can also adjust the opacity. Now I'm going black to white, and that's where we're seeing an opacity shift in there. Let's just scale this down a little bit. There we are. I'll do a little bit of a bevel and emboss so we have some edge showing. Right now we're doing an inner bevel. I can do an outer bevel or an inner bevel or an emboss or a pillow emboss. They all give you different effects, different looks up here, and different techniques: smooth, chisel hard, chisel soft. And as before, we can adjust the size in here, amount of softening and so forth. Let's just go ahead. We'll do an inner bevel on this. Will bring our size down, and I'll just want to add a smooth. Just a little bit. There we go. Okay, it's getting someplace. It's not great yet. So let's put some color into this. Now here's where it gets kind of fun. Coming on here to color overlay. And that puts a color overlay on top of your letters, just like that. We can still see the bevel in here. We can no longer see the gradient. The gradient is underneath. You see right here, it's actually below the color overlay. But we can bring the gradient back by changing our blending mode. I'll show you a few of these. Here's darken, for instance, and here's multiply, color burn. I'm going to just use the wheel on my mouse, and I can roll down and see the effects of these different blending modes to see what I get. That's kind of fun. It's called subtract. It actually is subtracting that color from my color and giving me basically a negative color on that. Exclusion. So you get some real interesting or unusual effects in here by doing this. Just go back to our basic. There we go. So you have that. You can adjust the opacity if you want to. Notice the less opacity means we don't have as much red showing. More opacity, you get more red. You can also change the color in here. Just click on that little color spot. Brings up the color picker. Choose how much color you want. I'm going to stay up here upper right hand corner, which is full saturation, and then simply grab the slider control down here and move this up, and you can get different views, different colors. So you can then find the color amount that you want. I think this time something right around in here somewhere looks good. I'll choose OK. And using the mouse wheel again, let's just scroll down and see the differences, see what else comes up. That's kind of nice. Hard light, it gives me different color variations going on. They're a little brighter than I had before, which is not a bad thing. We can even change the gradient again. The gradient, of course, is in behind at this point. I can choose different gradients, and this will then give me different effects because I'm now blending the gradient with the color above the gradient. As you can see, it gives you a great degree of complexity when you're doing this kind of work. You can even change the kind of gradient. Here's a radial gradient, an angle gradient, reflected, diamond shape, and you can adjust the size of that if you want to. So all kinds of different effects. Here's back to our linear again. Let's just scale this a bit. I think that's kind of fun. So, the same techniques as we used down here. The main difference was that we're now using this color overlay, which allows me to put a color on top of the gradient, and then I can blend that color with the gradient using the different blending modes. And here we can even, again, adjust the opacity as well. Notice how the color is colorizing both sides of that gradient. Okay, let's give this a little bit of a drop shadow, not much. We'll double check our bevel and emboss. Now that I have some color on here, I might want to just tweak that a little bit. for effect. Maybe like that. That's kind of fun. And then let's take a look at our drop shadow right down here. Here's our drop shadow. Let's look at our size and our distance down just a little bit. I want to bring the opacity back up again. There we are. I'm actually going to save this drop shadow until after we have moved our letters around so that the drop shadow will match the movement of the letters. But choose OK. There it goes. That's our next stage taken care of. We now need to rasterize this layer so we can move these letters around. So I'm going to make a copy of this. Let's just collapse the effects. I'll drag this down onto the new layer button, which will make a copy of it. There we go. And I'll hide the original. And then we'll rasterize this layer. Right click. Make sure I get into the thing here. There we go. Rasterize type. There it is. It's now individual letters on this text. So I can then cut these out. And for complete control, you want to cut each one of these out and put them on their own layers. That'd be the best way to go. Then you can really move things around as you want to. Or you can just cut them out and move one letter at a time. Let's just go ahead. We're going to cut this out and make new layers out of each one of our layers. So I'll grab a selection tool. I'm just going to use the polygonal lasso tool here so I can kind of work in between the letters. Just like that. There's our selection. And then let's do layer, new via copy. There's the G. Come back down here. I'm going to zoom in a bit as well on this. It's a little bit easier to see what we're doing. There we go. Let's get the E this time. And I'll do this for every single one of these letters. I have them all as separate pieces. There we go. Layer, new via copy. Now, you'll notice if I hide the whole name below, they copy to the same place. So they're not being moved, which makes it easier for us. We can then just move the ones we want to move. Okay, come back down here to my name. And staying on our move tool, let's get the O this time. The reason I'm copying and not cutting is so that I can keep the original intact in case I need to go back or want to go back to that in the future. Okay. Notice if I want to change my effects, it's better to change the effects way back down here on the text layer than it is to come back and try to change all the effects individually in each one of these layers. So keep yourself backup copies. Okay, layer new via copy. There we go. And let's continue on down. Get our R. And this again, just work through to do this step. Now, just to save you some viewing time, I'm going to pause the video right now and finish making these individual layers. I'll then bring the video right back up again. Okay, that is done, and now I have all of my letters on individual layers. I left the apostrophe here with the E, no reason not to. So now, notice that each one of these has their effects. They've copied the effects as well, which does allow me, if I want to go in and actually change the effects on a letter-by-letter basis if I feel like it. Just collapsing all those layers. We can then hide that name in the background. Okay, let's now have some fun in here. I'm going to play with the circular letters, the G, the O, the G, and the S. We'll just move those around a little bit. So go up here to the G, it's the top layer, and then it's doing edit. And there we go, edit. That's better. Free transform. I can then move that around, as you can see in here, and place it anywhere I want to. If you come just outside the corner, you can actually rotate that letter. There we go. And let's move over here to the O. Actually, I'll set that in place. There it is. Come down to the O. Same thing, edit, free transform, and I can move that around. I'm going to do a little different this time and change his position like that. This I can resize as well if I want to, so we're not limited on that. All the effects, as you can see, will move with the resize. Notice that the gradient is kind of staying place. which is an interesting little tidbit. Okay, let's apply that. And I'll come back and do the G in here, which will be a little further on down our list. There it is. Same thing. Edit, free transform, and I'll spin this one this way. And a little resize on that, so it's not quite the same thing, just for the fun of it. And we'll finally finish off with moving the S around a little bit. Oh, let's set that in place. I'll just do it this way. S, edit, free transform, give him a spin, make him a little longer. There we go. Okay, let's just back out just a touch. Zoom out. There it is. You can kind of see the tunes down below. Bit of fun. Now, I'm putting the drop shadows in at this point. And I mentioned I didn't do it down here when I had the text all as one because I wanted to have the drop shadows affect the layers in behind, any overlap. I wanted to have that showing. So I need to do my drop shadows individually here. So we'll start off with the G. We'll set our drop shadow here and then copy that effect to the rest of these letters. Just bring our effects back up like that. Double click on effects. Put in the drop shadow. And we now can play with that effect and just see what looks good. I'm going to go a little sharper on this, but let's bring our opacity down so I can see that. Looking right down here. Let me just cancel that on out. Moved it by accident. Didn't want that. There we go. Okay, I'm looking right down this area here because down here we can see an overlap. I have the shadow over the letter and the shadow over the background, so I'm kind of paying attention to that spot. So let's bring that back up again. Drop shadow, you can see right there. There is that double overlap. And in here I can adjust my opacity so I can really see the difference on that overlap. I can see the shadowing here and I can see the shadowing in there. I get that separation happening. I think that's pretty good. Okay, I'll just zoom back out a little bit here. Looks nice. Now to copy that layer style, just right click on the layer, copy layer style, come down to your next layer, right click, paste layer style. And I'll just go down to each one of these layers and paste in their layer style. So they'll all match exactly. You want to have that. And paste layer style. And final one down here. Paste layer style. There we go. Let's now fit in on screen. Looking pretty good. So we now need to bring in our background and move things around a little bit for proper fit, and maybe come in and make some adjustments on our positions like that. Oh, I think it might look a little nicer if it's a little higher. There we go. Maybe just move the letters around just a little bit in here for a little more interest. Okay, we'll now bring our background in and see how the background fits with the rest of this text. Moving up to the top here, let's go to our cartoon background file. There we go. I'll just grab that layer and drop it on my other image. You see, I actually made that at a much smaller size, but that's fine for our use here. We don't need anything dramatic for this demo. I'll just pull that down underneath all of the type, and I should clear down below the tunes down there. There we go. And then a little quick resize on that. Edit, transform, scale, grab the corners, and I'll drag that out. I'm holding the shift key down so that it does the resize proportionally. That's pretty good. Apply that. Now it's a little hard to see the text, as you can see, so we're going to do a couple of things. First, I'm going to select all of the text layers that are part of my name. I'm just holding down the control key right now, and let's link those together. I can now move the whole thing up. Actually, I missed one there. Undo. Let's see which one I missed. Oh, there it is. Very top. Okay. And they're all linked. Bring it up a little bit. Let's come down. Let's move our tunes up a little bit as well. It's pretty good. At this point, I can come in and crop into the image since we don't need all this extra stuff down here. So let's go over to our crop tool. And I'll just crop in a bit on that. There we go. And a little bit on that right side as well. Hit the confirm key and it's cropped. Now all we need to do is to lighten up that background, and we can do that by putting a layer in between this and our type. So let's come in here to layer. We're going to be doing a new fill layer, do a gradient fill. There's a fill. You can see how that makes the type pop out, but that's not a very good gradient. So let's see what we have here. I have that one. It's a light version of that kind of rainbow effect. A little more color on this one. I think the light one's good. Just a little bit of coloration in there. I now want to blend this with the layer in behind it. So let's go over here to the blending modes, come down to screen, and that just gives me a slight coloration in there on the background, but we can still read our text just fine. So there we go. That's creating cartoon text, and as you can see, it's mostly done with the blending modes or the blending options layer styles, using all these different tools in here. There's a lot they can do in here. You want to just play around with some of this stuff. There's an amazing amount of options available for you in here. Do some real great different type effects. But there we go, cartoony style text. Normally at the end of these discussions I like to answer any questions that I get about these different techniques. I don't really have any questions on this particular technique. It's pretty straightforward, but I do have some other little variations you may want to take a look at. Let's take a look down here at the tunes, and that's on this layer here. Let's bring our effects back up again. Double click on the effects, brings effects back up. And one thing you may want to consider here is adding in a stroke onto that. You can do a stroke right there, and that can sometimes add a bit to the cartoony quality. You can make the stroke, thicker or thinner, just a little bit. You can choose outside or inside or centered on the path, on the outside path of that. I think outside's okay in this case. And you can choose to fill with a color or a gradient or a pattern. Sometimes the gradient is real nice. So it actually shifts in here, going from black to white on this gradient. You can see that right there. You can choose any gradient that you want and actually have a real fancy colorized gradient if you feel like doing it. There's a real fancy colorized gradient. I'll just leave it kind of straight black to white. Okay, let's apply this same idea up here onto our top lettering. We'll start with the G right there. Let's bring the effects back up. Now, the reason why I'm not copying the layer effects from the tunes here up onto the name is because we use different settings up here. So I can't copy this up here, but I can do the same trick. Come back down, do a stroke right there. See, there's the stroke effect. And we can adjust the size on that to whatever size you want. I think 3 looks pretty good outside. Now if we do a gradient here, you'll see the gradient, because this is on this one layer, the gradient goes on that one layer. Whereas tunes, the whole thing here, the whole word was on one layer, so the gradient goes from here all the way over to here. In this case, the gradient is going across that way, top to bottom. If I want left to right, I could adjust my angle over here to any angle I want on that gradient. But if I went, left to right, they would all go left to right. We, light to dark, light to dark, light to dark. So if we go top to bottom like that, it's going to have a more realistic look to it. The white along the bottom also gives us a separation between the dark parts of the letter, and the black here, separation between the white parts or light parts of the background. Okay, in this case, since we're using the same layer effects on all of these letters here, we can just copy this. So I'll just right click, copy layer style, and then come down to each one of these layers and paste that layer style on. There we go. And that then gives us that nice style effect. So there it is. Just one little variation you might want to play with on these, see if you like that or not. Again, it gives it a little more of a cartoony look, having some outline on that. And there we go. That's how to do the cartoony text. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.